Okay, today I'm going to talk about the setup and use of the RIANOV Eagle ballistic calculator. The Eagle is a little bit more sophisticated unit than the Solo. You can set it up for multiple weapons. It'll store the ballistic information for up to 16 different rifles on it. Again, it's a complete weather station and includes an electronic compass also for determining the bearing. So a little bit more sophisticated unit than the Solo. And it also has a little bit more user-friendly remote control so that you don't have to manipulate the buttons on the screen. The wired remote is a little bit of its own issue, particularly in a hunting situation, but having played around with it quite a bit, I actually really like the flexibility of using the remote and not having to get my hands up on the unit itself, especially from a shooting position. So, all right, let's turn the unit on. This unit's already been set up on this rifle, so all the ballistic variable information, we'll go through it when we hit all the menu screens, but it's already been entered in. If you would like to see all the information actually being entered in, I'll refer you to the Solo video where I actually start from a fresh unit right out of the box and enter in all of the ballistic information for that rifle. Again, this one, that information's already entered in there. I will scroll through each one and show you where that information is, but the information itself is already entered in on this rifle. Okay, so I'll turn the unit on. Quickly just going over the screen. It's very similar to the Solo unit on the screen. You have your distance to the target. True is a feature that's specific to the Eagle unit that allows you to true your ballistic profile using actual hit values as opposed to what the ballistic calculator tells you. We'll go over that when we get into that area. The mode is 3, very similar to how the Solo is. The wind values and directions are up in the upper right hand corner just like the other. Then there's your elevation and windage correction solutions, your slope and cant angles, and then this unit also has some additional features down here in the lower right hand corner. M is for moving targets, and P is actually a military function that allows the use of laser pointers, and doesn't really have application for civilian market, so we'll be skipping over that one pretty much. Okay, but anyway, so hold down the middle button for 3 seconds. It gets you to the main menu. So the name for this weapon's ballistic profile, Bub 7mm Rem Mag. This is Bub's rifle, so that's why it's saved that way. Okay, so we're going to go down to weapon. Just like the Solo unit, this is where you enter in all your ballistic profile variables. So we have the name, twist rate. This is a 7 Rem Mag with a 9 twist barrel, so there's our 9-inch twist. Twist direction is right. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen when I actually have the field highlighted like that, so I'll try to go below it. So there you see the caliber, 284. Next thing down is ballistic coefficient. This one's set up using 168 Burger, so there's that G1 6.617 BC. Next thing down is the bullet weight, 168 grains. The bullet length, which is you can either measure this value or you can get it off of JBM's ballistic database website. Almost every bullet by all manufacturers listed in there, so you can get it from there. This reticle is a MOA reticle, so we've got that set up as MOA as opposed to mils. Scope height, we're at 1.90 inches. Scope offset, the scope is mounted directly above the bore, so we have a 0 offset. Okay, this particular rifle, this scope is a little different than the one we had the Solo on. This is I think this is HRT vortex, so it's got half-minute clicks on the elevation, quarter-minute on the windage. So where we've got our click values, we've got number of clicks per MOA. Since this is a half-minute, we've got 2 clicks per minute. Wind is 4 clicks per minute. Okay, muzzle velocity for this rifle, we're getting 3120 feet per second. The muzzle velocity correction, this is a correction if you know the information. It can calculate your muzzle velocity based on a temperature. So if you know that, for example, your rifle shoots at 3,200 feet per second at 80 degrees and 3,100 feet per second at 30 degrees, you can enter in the feet per second per degree correction, and then when it measures the temperature, it'll automatically correct your muzzle velocity to give you a more accurate ballistic solution. Okay, after that muzzle velocity correction, there's the chrono distance. So when you do your chronograph velocity measurements, you'll want to note how many feet from the muzzle your chronograph is. In this case, we are 7 feet from the muzzle. Put that information in there. Then we've got elevation add. What this is if you're already dialed to a target, say at 500, and now you want to go beyond that, this would be you would enter in the correction to that 500, and then the new solution would be above your 500 correction, what you would need to go to 600, for example. So in this case, we're just going to have a 0 there. We're always going to be dialing up from our 0 point. Okay, 0 range was 200. Temperature, this is the temperature when you did your zeroing. So whatever it was on the day you zeroed the rifle, in this case we've got 65 degrees on here. Barometric pressure 28.83 millimeters of mercury. Again, these are values on the day you zeroed the rifle. Same with humidity. The unit doesn't actually measure humidity. It's got 5 ranges, I think, of relative humidity. Let's just go into it. You've got 1 to 30%, 30 to 40%, 40 to 60%, 60 to 70%, and 70 to 99%. So looks like 5 ranges that you can enter. If it was a particular humid day when you zeroed your rifle, you can put in a high humidity. We're just going to run the middle of the range here. So I got it set at 40 to 60. The bearing, our range where we shoot is points due west, so the bearing is 270 degrees. Okay, going down, the last item is latitude. The latitude at our range is 45.8 degrees north. So we enter that in. That is the last of the weapon. So I'm going to hold the button down for 2 seconds. We can go back to the main menu. Next thing down is environment. Now this is the information that you would enter at the time you're trying to make a shot. So this is information that you need at the time that you're making your shot, so that it can use this information for the actual ballistic calculation. Okay, so humidity, it's the same set of ranges. If you've got a device that measures humidity, you can find the range that fits what you're measuring. Okay, the next thing down is temperature. It's measuring, this is one of the weather feature items that this ballistic calculator has. So the complete weather station is measuring temperature. So it's measuring 70 degrees right now. Okay, barometric pressure 28.79 millimeters of mercury. Again, that's measuring that value, so you don't have to enter it. Bearing, it actually has a digital compass in this unit, so it's flashing between 86 and 92, it looks like. So that's the direction you're pointing. And then the latitude. Again, these last 2 items, your bearing and latitude, mainly come into play for really long shots where Coriolis would have an effect. That's what you need to know latitude and bearing for. The bearing, it's going to be able to measure, but if you're trying to make an extremely long shot, you're going to want to get your latitude entered in here pretty accurately. If you know you're hunting in an area where you have a general latitude you're hunting in, you can enter this in ahead of time, and then it'll be right when you need to take a shot, and you won't take that time to enter it in. Okay, that does it for the environmental screen. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the main menu and go to the next one down, mode. Okay, the mode, I covered kind of in depth on the solo unit, but there's 5 different modes that we can go through. And the 5 different modes are, one is working with military laser rangefinders, so it pretty much doesn't come into play for the civilian unit. Mode 2 is measure slope and cant, and you enter in mil-dot ranging info for doing the range estimation. Mode 3, which is the mode where we most commonly use, that's where it measures slope and cant, and you enter in distance to target that you would measure with a laser rangefinder. Mode 4, user enters slope and the mil-dot ranging info. And 5, you enter the slope and the distance to target. So basically those 4 and 5, you're measuring slope by some other means than using the automatic features that are already built into the unit. Based on that, we're going to leave it set at mode 3, which is where it's already set up at. That's right there to the right of the true. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main menu. If you wanted to change the mode you're in, you would go into here. That's really the only thing that menu item does. System, this is where you can set auto off is set for. So right now it's set at 30 seconds. If you have 30 seconds of inactivity, it automatically turns off to save battery. Delay time, this is the time that it delays before it starts to measure the slope and cant when you go into the solution mode. So you'll want to be set up pointing at the target with the rifle canted the way it's going to be for the shot, and then it delays for 1 second and takes that measurement. Background is blue. Brightness is set at 5. Auto temp. This is just if you wanted to manually enter in the temperature of the barometric pressure, you can turn the auto temp and the auto barometric pressure and the auto bearing on and off. Obviously, if you turn them off, you're going to have to manually enter them in, measured some other way. Then you got your battery life, and then a laser rangefinder, which this again only comes into play if you're using a particular rangefinder that can communicate with the device, so it doesn't really come into play on this unit. Okay, then there's the display internal, display wind, yes. And then there's a top button and a swap left and right and bottom. This basically allows you to change which buttons do what on the remote, so that if you've got this mounted on your rifle somewhere, you can set the buttons exactly how you want them, so that you don't even need to look at them to know which is which. So I'm just going to leave it where it is. We've got a serial number and software version. And that's about it for that screen. I'm going to go ahead and hold the button in to go back to the main menu. We'll scroll on down to the next one, Dope. The Dope screen allows you to enter in the actual information for a particular range. So if you know the exact value for a perfect hit, you can hit it. This allows you to basically correct your profile. Go to the true and hit the select button. It actually takes you into the Dope screen, which you can also get to from the main menu. So if I hold in the button and then go down to Dope and select this, it basically takes us to the same screen. So you can enter in Dope 2 different ways. Works the same. It basically allows you to enter in known ballistic data for good hits that's different than what your profile is telling you. So for example, if your calculator says, well, let me back up. Let's say you don't know an exact velocity for your ballistic profile and you enter in an estimate. And you go to the range and you're trying to make some shots. And let's say at 400 yards, it actually giving you pretty good data. But then you go out for an 800-yard shot and it tells you need 10 minutes, just for example. And you make a shot and you end up hitting a little bit low, and what you really needed was 10.5 minutes. What you can do is then go in and enter that the actual correction to make a good hit is 10.5, and then it remembers that and corrects your profile automatically for you. So it's really a learning system to get a more accurate profile. A pretty cool feature on this unit that the solo unit doesn't have. So a little bit more sophistication there. Okay, let's go to the main menu again. Password, you can password protect your profile so that if you have multiple users, they can't mess with your stuff. Range card, this is a really cool feature. You set this up and what you do is set up an increment of some, maybe 20, 25 yards, whatever it is. We've got it set at 25 yards and a low value of 200. So when you enter in a value in your main screen, a yardage value, and you get a correction. So let's imagine we're out hunting and we're sitting on a tree line that we're watching, and the tree line's 500 yards away. And let's say you ranged that and you entered that value in because you think that's where the deer is going to come out. But the deer comes out and he actually walks quite a bit. He walks 25 yards in front of the tree line, and your range finding, you got rangefinder on him, and he's 25 yards closer, but it takes a little bit longer to enter in a different yardage value onto the unit. But from your solution page, you can just scroll the up and down buttons when the yardage is selected, and it'll go by that increment that you have selected there, up and down. So if you're entered in 500 when you range those trees and you know what the solution is for that, and the deer comes out and he's 25 yards closer, you can just scroll down and it gives you 475 value. So let's go in and actually show you that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and enter in some yards here. So it's set at 412 right now. I'm going to go ahead and go to 500 like we were talking about. So I'm going to get this exactly 500. Okay, and then I'm going to go down to solution and go. Okay, so it gives me a correction for 500, and the yardages are highlighted. So if I scroll up, it goes to 525. Up again, 550. And you can see the corrections changing as I go up. Or I can go the other direction. The deer comes out and he's 475. Now it's 5.34 instead of the 500 yard value of 5.92. So a pretty cool feature that allows you to quickly change the yardage by an increment that you selected ahead of time and get a value without having to manually enter in those yardage each time. Very cool feature. Okay. I am going to go back to the main menu again and scroll on down. So that was range card. The next thing, the last thing on the list is the angle calibration. So this is very similar to the solo unit. You want to have your rifle leveled in both slope and cant, and then go into the calibration and set your zeros for those angle values, and then it'll be able to measure those in the field whenever you deviate from those level points. Okay, I'm going to go back to the main screen, exit. Okay, so that's pretty much how everything works. Again, we've got the wind direction and the wind value, and that's miles per hour, which you can edit the units. But so looks like he's got it set right now to 9 direction, 9 o'clock, blowing to the left wind, and you just change the values for the wind up and down just like that, pretty much like the solo unit. And it's giving you real-time corrections to your solution as you do that. You can see the values changing as I go up in magnitude. And same for the wind direction. As you change the wind direction to any number on the face of a clock, see, you can go up. There's 12 o'clock is a tailwind, 3 o'clock is left to right, and 6 o'clock is a headwind. And you can see that as I rotate around the clock, the corrections in the solution are changing. Okay, here's the click units. Again, you can change that. MA is MOA. You can do mils or whatever units your scope is set up for. And then we briefly touched on the M and the P down here in the bottom. The M is for a moving target, and it works pretty much like wind. So you've got the direction based on a face of a clock, again, that your target is moving, how fast the target is moving, and again, units and miles per hour. And so we've got target moving 6 miles per hour towards 3 o'clock, so left to right. The correction is going to be, well, this is at 500 yards, by the way. The correction is going to be 11.1 minutes. And it also gives you a time of flight of the bullet. So the bullet's going to have a time of flight of 0.65 seconds for that shot. And the target is going to move then 11.1 minutes in addition to your wind value. So on the left-hand side was still your regular wind correction for a motionless target. So you would want to add the two together if you were going to make a shot on a moving target. So that's what that is. I'm going to hit the little home here to get back to the home screen. The P in the corner again is for laser pointers for military applications, so it doesn't really apply to this unit. Okay, so the couple units that I wanted to get back to, or a couple items I wanted to get back to, this truing feature, what this allows you to do is, let's say your profile is not quite perfect on your rifle. Maybe you just estimated your muzzle velocity. So you head out to the range and say at 400 yards it's pretty close. It hits the way it should. But you dial out for an 800 yard shot and the correction that it's telling you is, say, 10 minutes. I don't know what the real value is, but let's just say it was 10 minutes. You shoot and you're actually hitting a little low. And what you really need to have dialed was 10.5 minutes. Well, what you would do is go into this screen and then enter in that for a known hit, what you need to dial is 10.5. And the unit then remembers your corrected profile and will then more accurately be able to give you future solutions based on the actual values that you need to enter or dial your scope to in order to make a hit at that distance. So that's pretty much how the truing feature works. I kind of skipped over the dope part of it, but I believe the dope is set up the exact same way. So when you have known dope to dial for a particular distance, then it'll use those values for your ballistic profile and give you more accurate solutions. So that's pretty much the Eagle unit. Very cool little unit, very sophisticated. Definitely the most accurate ballistic calculators available on the market today.